Chapter 25. A sea of raging energies broke over Urza in a kaleidoscope wash. It permeated his mind and nearly drowned his consciousness. As certain as Urza was that there must be a fundamental pattern to this chaos, underlying everything, it remained of such a magnitude that even the Planeswalkers could not comprehend it. Propelling his mind through the chaos on will alone, the Walker was trailing a Phyrexian. He followed a dark beacon, a characteristic pattern left by a Phyrexian portal device. He pursued a trail left by the creature he now pursued and would destroy. The Negator had ambushed him. Its teeth were blunt, unusual for a Phyrexian, and set at wide, irregular intervals. With every breath, those teeth rang out with energy-disrupting force. The hisses and screeching that made up Phyrexian speech formed partially translated in Urza's mind, drawing a shadowy lethargy over the Walker's thoughts. Urza still remembered how he had stood there, only vaguely aware of the mounting problem. With a voice able to whisper a numbing darkness into its mind, the thing had been on him with little chance to prepare. Except for that strange new power, the Negator had relied on physical assaults and an old system of burning fluid. The storage tanks were not even protected by the desiccated flesh covering the rest of its deformed body. The skin was simply split open in 3 places, and tanks were buried partway into its frame. Metal-braided tubing connected the tanks to a shoulder-mounted weapon. It was an older Negator, set after him long ago. Hardly a match, especially once Urza had used his staff to knock away half of the creature's lower jaw. Without its siren sound, the Negator had chosen flight to report its partial success, back to its masters, no doubt. Urza was not able to allow that to happen, his mind piercing the veil. Urza drew his body into form and set foot down upon a strange plane. For a moment, he thought he remained partway into the chaos between worlds, the steel-gray skies cascading with the same energy as did the void. The clouds were real enough, roiling in strange winds, and the ground firm beneath his feet, though he sensed its potential for treacherous footing. The dull tan stone stretched in seamless perfection over a rough plateau and then fell down an impressively long and steep mountainside into a deep valley below. The mountain ended only a few hundred yards above him at a sharp ridge. Halfway up the slope, the Negator had paused, dark eyes staring back at the enemy who had trailed it. Urza drew in the winds, striking them by will to fit his own pattern. The wall hammered into the Phyrexian, driving it back down slope. Its progress thwarted. The creature spun and leapt for the Walker and died mid-flight, a summoned phantom snatching it up in a large mouth of teeth and shredding desiccated flesh away from a metal-reinforced skeleton. Black, decaying meat clinging to a few metal cauldrons and a few dull gray bones rained to the ground. Yes, it was an older creation of Phyrexia, not too dissimilar from what he might have seen in the days he traveled with Xantcha. So many worlds traveled then. He explored the planes of the Dominarian Nexus and out of the fringe of the multiverse itself. Now this world, a world he had never walked before. The chaotic sky lacked a sun, and the ground, this strange stone, was not true soil but manufactured.
Welcome to Wrath, Planeswalker.
Distracted at the importance of his discovery, Urza did not immediately question the appearance of a new voice. This was a created plane, like Sarah's realm, like Phyrexia. Wrath is an artificial plane, he said, answering aloud.
That is correct.
Urza now realized that the voice sounded within his mind, not his ears. He guarded his thoughts, wary once again. His expanded consciousness identified the intrusive thoughts as a simple voice, unable to read his mind, but heard through the same function that allowed him to speak in anyone's language. "Where are you?" he asked, finding no places a body could hide.
Lost. And not even you can redeem our bodies, Urza. If Urza Planeswalker you are, look above you, look beyond.
Above him, Urza saw only the sharp ridge and heard the cut of wind slicing over it. "Look beyond," the voice had said. The Power Stones burned within his eyes, replacing the illusion of mortal blue as he concentrated his preternatural senses. He saw their outlines, spectral dances of energy, sometimes twisting into a simple globular pattern, but more often holding a humanoid shape with arms and legs and head. There were 3 of them, then 10, then 50, similar to his own form of pure energy, but they were so much more basic in nature. They swam along the ridge, unthreatening. "I am Urza," he admitted cautiously, continuing to tap the mana of traveled lands should he require the power. "How do you know me? And who are you?"
Who else would bring war to Wrath, rather than await Wrath to bring war to him? We are the Soltari.
One of the patterns of energies pulsed.
I am Lina.
The Soltari. In the depths of his memory, Urza recalled the name. A small city-state of Dominaria, which mysteriously disappeared back in the days when he and Zancha had worked to free Effin Pincher from the Phyrexians, over 200 years before his founding of the first Tolarian Academy. Lost. Lina had said lost. Lost between worlds. Urza had no need of bending the ground. His contact with it allowed his consciousness to work against the strange stone, to test its properties and sense its purpose within the plane of wrath. He could feel the movement far below, spreading outward to the distant horizon. It was a flow of malleable stone, able to hold back the energy curtains and force a new plane into existence, able to penetrate the veil and rip pieces of Dominaria away. What had Linus said, rather than await wrath to bring war to him? The planeswalker leapt into the air, flying above the ground as he rushed for the summit, the direction from which the strange stone flowed. He found himself on the volcano's rim, staring down into an incredible caldera, the base of which was spanned by an incredible fortress tower. Dark metals gleamed beneath eerie lightning. This place was obviously Phyrexian in architecture, and it had to be the nerve center of wrath, in that the stone radiated outward from it as it continued to push in all directions. Urza reached down through the fortress, testing the production of the strange stone. He felt the tremors shaking beneath.
It can overlap Dominaria.
Lina again.
Such has been done many times. We were the first, the only failure that cost so many lives. With any transfer, some are lost. They wander wrath or their own lands, always apart. You will destroy this place?
Though he had contemplated just that, now the walker shook his head in a silent negative. No, he finally said. It doesn't feel as if I can. He looked hard at the fortress below. Different from Sarah's realm, he said, thinking aloud. It would not collapse so easily. The stone holds the curtain back. It would take massive destruction of the land itself, of the world. Then the purpose of wrath hit him, a hard, cruel blow to his mind. This is their staging area for the invasion. No portals. From here they hope to set entire armies across the world.
You must destroy this place, the stronghold. We have worked to distract the overseers here. We've pushed at the equipment over great amounts of time, but our work is too slow. It will finish soon.
No, Urza said, offering a grim smile. Not soon. I felt your work beneath the fortress. The equipment is weakened and being run too hard. Artifice requires more care, a lesson the Phyrexians will learn without my help. It would be better if they never knew I was here.
You will simply leave, then?
This was no judgment, just a clarification from Lina. I will, but you are welcome to return with me. Urza felt again at their energy form, certain his strength could pull them across a short walk between planes. I cannot give you back form, but I can return you to Dominaria. And when the time is right, I might be able to give you revenge. How many years had these people waited? A millennium?
We would like that. Phyrexia has much to answer for.
Urza couldn't have agreed more. The lingering scent of dinner, grilled swordfish from the leftovers that Baron had walked past in the kitchen, told the mage he hadn't missed the meal by more than 30 minutes. That was subjective, of course. Having just come through the time lock, Rain would have actually finished hours before Baron ever left real time for their shared home. The wonders we have done here on Tolaria, he thought, not a little bitterly. For the sacrifice of one meal, Baron had been able to spend a full day with Urza. A poor substitute, he decided. If only there wasn't so much to do, and now so much more after Urza's revelation. The house was silent except for a crackling fire which warmed the main room, occasionally tossing out a small spark which glowed dull red on the hearth before fading to a cinder. Rain waited on the couch, legs tucked beneath her and lost under the folds of her silken robes as she stared into the dancing flames. His wife did not greet him. You are still not working, he asked, lacing concern heavy into his voice. Baron couldn't remember the last time Rain had gone into her workshop. He was concerned, of course, but he also did not want Rain to hear the doubts crowding his thoughts. Doubts for her, for them. Every day he hoped she would solve her problems, uncertain how he might help. I didn't want to get involved in a new project just now. Rain put little feeling behind the excuse. She studied her husband with haunted eyes. hoped you'd be home early, that we could talk." She trailed off, waiting. Baron paced over to the couch and sat wearily on the opposite end. Usually Rain would have asked after Urza's reasons for an emergency meeting, especially since the walker had simply shown up this morning and pulled the mage away. He was obviously beyond caring about academy business this night. The short stretch of fabric and cushion that separated Rain from him seemed at once a great chasm with sharp rocks waiting below. He ventured a foot toward the edge, dreading where it might lead. "We can always talk, Rain." His spirits lifted slightly as he discovered he actually meant it. The shock of Urza's news about the artificial plane of wrath left the mage with a new perspective. Suddenly, he saw the avoidance of their problems over the last few years, and he felt the worse for it. "We should have talked some time ago." He heard the regret in his own voice, hoped Rain read into it as well. "If ever I wish that Urza's time travel machine was still functional to be able to relive a period of my life, this is it." The time machine. How many problems could be traced so far back? The shattered temporal zones, the constant threat of Phyrexians discovering Tolaria, then Urza's second academy, and the projects developed. When was the last time Baron had truly considered any of those projects? Rain shifted uneasily. "The world has passed us by, Baron. And we're..." She paused and then put in terms more familiar, more comfortable. "We're winding down. This is a problem we've avoided for too long. Yes or no, stay or go?" "Easily asked," Baron said with a heavy sigh, feeling every day of his 8 relative centuries of life. Rain had started with the one problem on which he knew he would have to fight her. "I walked around Tolaria," he said by way of edging into the discussion. "All around it, which is why I'm so late. The island's not in good health," a euphemism for the ruined lands now blowing dusty tendrils out over the ocean, the failing crops, and now worries over the water table. "The island is suffering, but still the academy goes on, teaching and learning and building. How much more might have we accomplished, Rain, without the legacy, the bloodlines, and Metathran wasting so many valuable resources?" "Were they wasted?" I don't know. Maybe that's the trouble." Baron smoothed his cloak flat, ran fingers back through his graying hair. "It cost us Gatha, Timon, and dozens of others over the years. The Phyrexians claim their price even when they aren't attacking. And the legacy..." He paused. "It finally seems we've put all our hopes into one plan, into Urza. If he's wrong, again, or if he simply makes too many mistakes along the way, then it's all over." Rain wiped at her eyes with the heel of one hand. "I have to leave," she said simply. "I know. And I have to stay." There. It was said. Her admitting her decision freed him to admit his. Living in slow time for so long, with only brief vacations back into the real world, had left them both drained, but where everything else paled, still Baron could hang on to his duties. Those duties would be impossible to run from anywhere but here, for now, for as long as it took to complete the legacy and discover its heir. Urza's revelation had convinced him that he must see this through the end. He was always the outsider, never at peace with the world, his family, or himself. He breathed a heavy sigh and proceeded to slowly tell Rain about the meeting with Urza, about wrath and why he was needed in slow time now more than ever before. Rain had her own private demons to dispel, he knew, from listening in on her nightmares some nights. He knew from the truth Urza all but admitted at their meeting the subjective year before. Trapped inside a slow time cage with the darkness, her every movement suffused with Phyrexia, or the preparations against them, she could never come to terms with that black side of her nature. She could never come to terms with being a child of Phyrexia. Whether she recognized it as such or not, it was true. She was one of the bloodlines, Urza's child, one of the thousands touched unknowingly by the Walker. To his surprise, Rain shook her head. "Can I stay as well?" Not the same emphatic statement she might have made at the project's beginning, but a weary acceptance of the circumstances. Baron had expected that, though inwardly his hopes sparked that the two of them could see this through to the end, together. "Are you sure?" "No." She stretched a tentative smile over her face, apparently found that it didn't cause her any new pain. "I can't leave you behind. I refuse to let Tolaria, Phyrexia, or even Urza separate us." She stood, one hand catching Baron's and pulling him up after her. Standing there, both his hands around both of hers, they stared into each other's eyes. I do not want you lost to me, Baron, my husband. Do what you must. What needs doing? She released his grip, stepping away in a whisper of silk and the light whisk of leather sandals against the wooden floor. I'll be waiting. Always. She backed her way from the room, eyes tearing only slightly, but her confidence in her husband never wavering. In that, Rain obviously possessed no doubts. She turned at the entryway and walked toward their private chambers. How long he stood there, lost in his own thoughts, Baron wasn't sure. The fire hissed and popped, the flames offering a small measure of company and solace, though never so warm as the touch of Rain's hands against his. His conscience and sense of duty both nagged at him, finally prodding him from the room and moving him along as far as the long hall. There he paused, staring in the direction of his private offices, knowing there was work to be done, but putting off Rain, who had sacrificed again for their common good. He turned away from the office, heading instead toward their chambers. Perhaps he couldn't solve Rain's problems, but he could be there for her, as she so often had been for him. His work could wait one more evening.